Well, hello there. My name is Jack. I am the resident game designer of the panel, and welcome back to the Cup TV, where we put the real and the tea in reality, and you can always come to us first to quench your thirst. It seems like the train yesterday might have swapped us around a little bit because Lana got off, I got on. I am here today to recap Destination X UK's fourth episode, where we see an episode that is hauntingly familiar to the US. So, just general warning: this entire episode will spoil an episode about midway through US. If you haven't watched that yet, they're both good series. Go ahead and watch. But if you are sticking around, please consider throwing us a subscribe below. The button did just glow rainbow, so I mean, you might as well, right? In addition, you can find us on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky, at the pod below, and you can also find me there at Jack the Flop in almost all of those places. You can also head into the description to buy our lovely cup mug. It is so nice, so pristine, and it ships anywhere in the world except Brazil right now due to some customs nonsense that we're still sorting out. We are so sorry. But everywhere else, you can feel free to grab it. And if you love drag content, ESC, or WWE content, you can follow us at our channels below in order to see more of that. But I say we stop stalling and we go ahead and get into this episode. So, last episode was a pretty massive shakeup. We brought back Ashvin, Chloe, and Claire, and we got rid of both James and Ben. James was left at the train station, being replaced by Ashvin directly, and Ben was left behind in Munich. Now we have 8 people once again on the bus, and we are heading off to our next Destination X. Players are slowly starting to track where they are. Once again, Nick is looking at the sun and saying, we're going northeast, which is correct. So, once again, if you're going to go on Destination X, just know how to track the sun and you're in a really good spot. But players are slowly discussing how they're going to deal with the brand new campers on the bus, being Ashvin, Chloe, and Claire. It is now technically 5-3. The old players are thinking, we probably just want to team up against them, right? Take them out, nice and simple. The new players are just trying to break in and get a good footing. Chloe feels like she has a really good grasp on the game due to her historian background. Ashvin is repeatedly failing upwards. That's unfortunately the best way I could put it, and I love him, but repeatedly failing upward is his general trajectory, as is mine, so I relate far too much. And Claire is kind of just in the background, making some good deductions, but kind of waiting to see what happens. So we head over to Moosham Castle to start today's expedition. Now, of course, it's never named Moosham Castle in the UK edition, but we very much see it is the exact same challenge in terms of concept to a one that was done in the US. Players will be going throughout the different areas of the castle and need to find keys. Correctly finding a key will let you move on to the next stage, while if you don't earn a key, you must head down to, in this version, it's called the stables. It's also a dungeon. In the dungeon, there is also a mini challenge that you can do. If the players in the dungeon do not complete the mini challenge by the time the players upstairs have their clues unlocked, then they get 2 keys for the room with a view. Otherwise, the at the bottom get a key, and the players at the very top get a key. But before any of that occurs, we have a mad dash through the courtyard of Musham Castle in order to grab the first the first 6 keys. I know how to count. It is not noon, and I am not sleep deprived. You can't prove it. Anyway, we slowly see people start to find keys. Saskia gets one pretty quickly, then Josh, then Darren, then Claire, then Nick, and suddenly it's 2 new players being Ashvin and Chloanne and Judith. And of course, as the old players are going to help the old players, they kind of take what Rob is saying and saying, well, and go, Judith, look in the well. And unsurprisingly, Judith finds the final key, meaning that Chloanne and Ashvin are the first 2 to be sent down to the stables. Now, in a change from the US version, everyone is playing in every single room, so there will be knockouts in every room, but there isn't just one player moving on. So we then head to room number 1, the puzzle room, which just has a bunch of flowers in it, and a portrait of Rob with a flower right above, basically right as not a lapel, but like almost a badge right above his heart, and a hole that just has something in it. Players try and figure out what this means overall, but the first person to catch what it actually does is Saskia, who manages to recognize the flower and puts it into the hole, unlocking the drawer, which only contains 4 keys. Now, I thought that Saskia would just be able to essentially eliminate 2 people here, but in the traditional style of the UK, players are able to discuss who's going down. And Claire just basically volunteers to go back down. She's like, I'm not going to get anything useful out of this. Let me just go. And after a bit of deliberation, people also kind of just force Judith down. Now, while all this is happening, Chloe and Ashvin have been given their mission by Rob. While players are coming down, they are to search this giant pile of hay for horseshoes. Some of the horseshoes are marked. If they can find all of the marked horseshoes and put them up in the correct order to spell out a word or a code, they get 1 key to go up to the room with a view. Otherwise, they get nothing, and the people above get 2 keys instead. So, Chloe and Ashvin don't really find anything just yet, but Claire and Judith go down with a second bucket of horseshoes to hopefully help them out. The second room we go to is a giant chapel with a bunch of music sheets. The music sheets all are various composers. People point out Beethoven, Mozart, Trapp. But as they begin to try and figure out what they're doing, one of them takes a seat in one of the pews, and a music track plays. Except it's very cut off. And as they continue to sit down on these pews, either an incorrect sound plays or part of the music track plays. They quickly figure out that what they have to do in order to solve this room is simply recreate a Mozart track by sitting down on 4 correct pews. They do this relatively fast. Obviously, we don't know what sort of time constraints they had on everything, because these don't seem like very complicated puzzles. They're all basically just 1-step escape room puzzles, which right person to talk about it. But they're basically just do an action to open the box, and they correctly open the box. So at this point, there are now 3 keys in the box, which means someone does have to go back down, and the group decides on Josh heading down to the stables. Now, the stable team, through Judith's help, have in fact figured out that they need to find the white horseshoes and begin to put it up. They get a W, an L, a T, and pretty quickly figure out it's probably waltz, and they just need to get the words. So we head back up to the final room here, which is very reminiscent of our actual final room from US, where there are a bunch of pottery pieces and a portrait of Rob with a mirror, meaning players need to figure out to put the text to the mirror in order to know what it says. There are just a lot of red herrings where it's like, whoopsie, maybe next time, not it. But eventually, Saskia does correctly find the drawer vase, and the drawer pops open. However, the stable team, through getting Josh's additional bucket, has found all five horseshoes and put them up, meaning they know the word is now waltz, and they have earned a key successfully. Meaning that the top team also only gets 1 key for their efforts. The between Darren, Saskia, and Nick, Darren ends up taking the room with a view in order to give the information back down to the new players. And at the bottom, Chloanne ends up getting the key because Ashvin, Chloanne, and Claire all decide to push themselves up to the top, the same because they feel that they are in a 5-3 majority. So they do, in fact, kind of nicely split the clues so that each side is seemingly getting the information. The 6 other players are just sleeping in the stables for the night, while Darren and Chloanne just get a nice room upstairs. When they look out the window next morning for their extra clue, they see a man with a bunch of fake goats on a hill. And some sort of waltz starts playing through a radio. Darren also notes that they have a bunch of flowers on a picture, and they're all labeled in ways that point to the sound of music. Both players figure out it is definitely Austria. The most obvious thing with Austria that they're gonna clue is sound of music, so it's probably gonna be that almost no matter what. But now it's basically just deciding between what area of Austria that they are going to choose. Darren is pretty well convinced that it's probably Salzburg. Chloanne is probably convinced more that it's Vienna. So we will just have to see where the clues end up pointing at the end. But Darren does not share the tulip clue that he finds, and both agree not to share the waltz that they heard. Although they didn't need to share that because, unfortunately, the downstairs players already know it's a waltz. So, whoops. Players then begin to discuss like what they might have heard or seen. Players have generally figured out it's probably Austria, but it's not super clear as to where. They know they've gone northeast, but I mean, in France they were showing a bunch of stuff that didn't make sense, and then whoops, we're actually in Paris. So players don't exactly know where they are right now. Well, with just about like 60-ish miles, 60-ish kilometers to go to Destination X, we head to the second challenge of the episode, where Chloe and Darren, as the winners of the last challenge, end up splitting the group in two, where they are going to have to correctly answer questions about what they saw at Lusham Castle. If they get the answer correct, if the three players on that person's team get it correct, the GOAT, either being Chloe or Darren, will hear a specific thing through their headphones that will clue them into the right answer. If they don't, they're going to hear nonsense. So, and for the first time this season, the team that gets the most answers correct in the fastest time will not have to do the map room. So we are finally having an immunity challenge on this season. It's very interesting that almost every single challenge in the US, except for one, basically always gave out immunity. But in this case, this is the only one to have it so far. So not so mad at the change. It makes everyone play. It makes it much more of a game of pinning it down against everybody. But we see both teams slowly begin to parse through the answers. The first is, what was Rob wearing yesterday? Was it burgundy or indigo? Both teams do correctly get that it was burgundy. The second that teams have to get is how many tally marks were on the wall of the stable. Both teams once again get it correct that it was 7, not 9. And finally, the teams are asked how many stag antlers were on the walls of the courtyard. And no one knows this, because why would you know this? This is a very weird question to ask. Like, of all things, it's like, oh, that weird decoration off to the side. Yeah, did you pay attention to that exactly? But such is the game. And Darren's team correctly gets it, while Chloe's doesn't, meaning that the map room this week is between Chloe, Ashvin, Judith, and Nick, while Darren, Josh, Judith, and Darren, Josh, Saskia, and Claire are all safe. So we are now trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do with today. The map room here, people are going back and forth. They think it's middle of Austria, maybe Vienna, maybe Salzburg. People are trying to just pin it down. The headphones clue, Darren correctly parses as slowly trying to clue into do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, which is, once again, a reference to The Sound of Music. However, people don't know where Sound of Music was filmed, meaning that players are unsure of what to do with their information. Now, as players begin to work through their options, they talk. The new players are confused. The old players, Darren spills a little bit of information. Nick spills a little bit of information. And as the 4 players who need to go into the map room attempt to figure this out, we very quickly get that both Josh and Judith are pretty much sure they're in Salzburg, or at least pretty close, so they are seemingly alright. Ashvin puts his right near Vienna, basically dead center, so it all comes down to Chloe. What is she going to do? And we don't see it first. But Rob, of course, comes onto the bus and tells us that the furthest from Destination X, and as such is going home, is Chloe. Chloe placed near the right of Austria. Ashvin was more central, and and Salzburg is much to the left of Vienna, meaning that it is game over for Chloe. Chloe Ann gets off the bus and sees the beautiful Sound of Music trail in Salzburg, Austria, our Destination X for the week, meaning that it was very clear. It was all leading towards Sound of Music. I didn't know there was a specific trail for the Sound of Music, but it ultimately makes sense as it's just going to probably take you to the locations of the film. But with that said, we are now down to our final 7 again. We have 5 original players being Darren, Josh, Judith, Nick, and Saskia, and 2 brand new players, Ashvin and Claire. I could unfortunately see Ashvin and Claire get iced out here just going into the future, but I think certain players are potentially going to trip themselves up. Nick and Saskia have kind of caught on to each other not exactly being fully truthful. Darren is kind of slowly getting sketched out by Nick. So we'll have to see how these dynamics evolve into the last 2 weeks of episodes, as I believe, from what we've seen, there's probably going to be the Vienna day off kind of mission, where players are going to, instead of going to the map room, they're going to have to backstab each other. We're probably going to see some interesting things come out. I'm very excited to see where the rest of the series goes. It does feel like it is back on course, especially from the first episode. But that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for jumping back on the Destination X bus with me. If you enjoyed my coverage, you can feel free to follow me below or just follow the channel in general. We cover Big Brother 4 times a week. We're covering Survivor Australia. We're covering The Snake. We are covering Project Runway. We are covering everything under the sun with reality TV. If you are more of a drag fan, maybe wrestling or Eurovision Song Contest, we have channels for all of them below in the description. And you can also feel free to go down there to buy your merch, including your lovely cup mug. But I am going to get out of here because I have to figure out where the X we are going next. So on that note, cheers!